Hi, this is Dakota Burleson, and I'm doing my presentation on gender violence. I hope to approach this subject with sensitivity that it deserves, because I am discussing real people, and it can be very difficult to be a survivor of gender violence. There are very deep historical roots to gender-based violence. I will probably only be scratching the surface. There is definitely a patriarchal societal norms that can greatly impact gender-based violence. Historically, many societies have been structured around patriarchal norms, where men will primarily hold the power of authority. This power dynamic has contributed to normalization and preservations of gender-based violence, as it was often seen as a way to assert control. There is many legal system discriminations in various historical contexts. Legal systems have often been very discriminatory, providing very few protections for victims of gender-based violence, particularly women and LGBTQ+ members. Legal frameworks have evolved over time, however, but historical inequalities have still impacted contemporary legal responses even to this day. Women's roles in societies have also been historically restricted, often limiting their economic and social and political agency. Gender-based violence has been used as a tool to enforce these restrictions and maintain traditional power structures. There have been various religious and cultural influences. They have played a role in shaping societal attitudes towards these gender roles. In some historical contexts, there's interpretations of religious texts or cultural practices that have been used to justify or persuade gender-based violence. There is shifts in feminist movements over time. They have emerged globally, which have helped challenge traditional gender roles and advocated for women's rights. These movements have played a crucial role in raising awareness about this gender-based violence and pushing for legal and societal changes over time. The current reality is there is a global prevalence. It pervades the global issue and affects individuals across diverse cultures and socio-economical backgrounds and geographical location. It has transcended borders and impacts people of all ages in many different forms. Speaking of forms, there are various different forms of gender-based violence, which encompasses various forms including physical, sexual, emotional, and economic abuse. It can manifest itself in people we trust the most, such as romantic partners, within families, within the workplace, and various different public spaces. Sadly, it is statistically very underreported. Statistics on gender-based violence are often very underestimated, and the true prevalence, due to underreporting, many survivors fear that they may face stigma, a lack of confidence in the legal system, which leads to a significant gap in reported cases and the actual incidents. Oftentimes, especially women, will try and protect their romantic partners, and they don't want to damage their perpetrator's reputation. Violence against LGBTQ+ individuals often face specific forms of gender-based violence, which include hate crimes, discrimination, homophobia, transphobia, and societal prejudice, which contributes to an increased vulnerability and violence towards those communities. Human trafficking and exploitation is a very sad but a very real thing. It's indirectly linked to exploitation, with many individuals, particularly being women and children, which are often forced into situations of abuse and slavery. There are sadly many, many challenges that survivors will face. Survivors of gender-based violence may experience intermediate and long-term physical health consequences, which include injuries, chronic pain, and reproductive health issues. Many of those issues will affect children very long-term, such as the reproductive health issues, sadly. Mental health impact. Often, gender-based violence will lead to a significant mental health challenges, such as post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety, depression, and suicidal thoughts. The trauma can affect the daily functioning and overall well-being of a victim. There is a lot of stigmatization and victim blaming. Survivors may face societal stigma and victim blaming, which can exacerbate the feeling of shame and isolation. There is a lot of misunderstanding about the nature and the violence that may contribute to judgment and the lack of empathy. There's often a financial strain as well. Economic abuse is a very common aspect of gender-based violence. Survivors can face financial strain due to control over resources, limiting their ability to leave an abusive situation or rebuild their lives after leaving. This often can happen, especially with children involved, which can help, well, not really help, but can force the cycle to repeat. There are challenges in seeking legal resources oftentimes. Navigating the legal system to seek justice can be very daunting. Survivors may face challenges in reporting the abuse, obtaining a restraining order, and pursuing legal action against their perpetrator. There's also a lot of cultural and community barriers. Cultural norms and community expectations may pose barriers to seeking help or leaving an abusive situation. Fear of judgment, ostracization, or cultural stigma can impact a survivor's decision-making process. There's even employment and education issues. Gender-based violence can interfere with a survivor's ability to work or attend school. The emotional and physical toll can lead to absence and reduced productivity, which can lead to dropping out of educational programs. Children and family dynamics can also be a big factor. Survivors with children can face additional challenges in managing the impact of violence on their children. This can include concerns with the child's safety, emotional well-being, and the potential for integral cycles of violence, like I mentioned prior. Thankfully, there are a lot of multimedia resources, such as hotlines and helplines. The National Domestic Violence Hotline for the U.S. provides confidential support, and there are resources 24/7. You can call them at 1-800-799-SAFE or 7233. You can also visit their website at www.thehotline.org. RAIN, or the Rape, Abuse, Incest National Network, offers National Sexual Assault Hotline, which you can call at 1-800-656-HOPE or 4673. You can also visit their website at www.rain.org. There are many local domestic violence shelters and services. Local organizations often provide emergency shelter, counseling, legal advocacy, and support groups. These resources can vary by region, so survivors should search for services specific to their area. There are counseling and therapy resources. Mental health professionals specializing in trauma and abuse can provide therapeutic support. Organizations such as the National Child Traumatic Stress Network or the NCTSN can help connect survivors with trauma-informed therapists. Legal assistance. There is often legal aid organizations and domestic violence advocacy groups that offer assistance with obligating restraining orders, legal representation, and navigating the legal system. There are also online support communities, online forums, and communities can provide survivors with safe spaces to connect and share experiences. They can also access information. Some of these platforms include Pandora's Aquarium and After Silence, which are examples of survival-focused online communities. We can also take preventive measures and help with support. Education awareness programs can implement comprehensive educational program at schools and community levels to raise awareness with the healthy relationships, consent, and the consequences of gender-based violence. They can promote gender equality, which can work towards dismantling gender norms and promoting equality in all spheres of life, challenging the stereotypes that contribute to the power imbalance of violence. We can also put early intervention programs into place. These can help identify and address early signs of violence and focus on intervening and supporting before the situation can escalate. We can also implement work policies that can help establish and enforce workplace policies that explicitly prohibit gender-based violence, harassment, and discrimination. These can provide training for employees and employers on recognition and addressing these issues. Legal reformations advocate for support and legal reformations that strengthen protection against gender-based violence, improving access to justice, and ensure legal fair processing for the survivors. We can also get counseling and therapy, which offer accessible and traumatic-informed counseling services for survivors to address the physiological impact of gender-based violence. Advocacy and awareness campaigns can conduct ongoing advocacy and awareness to reduce the stigma associated with gender-based violence and encourage empathy and support. This is my call to action. We should be educating ourselves and others and committing to learning more about these gender-based violence, its root cause, its impact, share the knowledge with our friends and families and our community to raise awareness. We can listen and believe survivors and create supportive environments by listening to survivors without judgment, believing their experience, and offering empathy. Our support can be a very significant difference. We can also be an active bystander and intervene and speak up if we witness something that can be harmful, and just be active bystander in challenging inappropriate behaviors and supporting those who might be at risk. These are some of my resources. I did also watch a lot of videos, but these are where I got 90% of my information, and these seem to be very reliable sources. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation today.